San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are we ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on.
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling here on Wrestling Observer Live. We've got Brian Alvarez here, a full bank of phone calls, taking your phone calls on pretty much any subject that you want to talk about tonight. WWE SmackDown is from Richmond, Virginia, and we are pretty hopeful that we will get a phone call when that taping ends, which could be in about half hour, 45 minutes maybe, and get a full recap of what's going on there, as well as we can talk about all of the various news of the week, and there's a lot of it. Brian, how are you tonight?
Doing good.
That's good. Among the news tonight, for those, if any of you have seen the UFC show, which actually ended on the West Coast, it would have been a couple of hours ago on the East Coast, the debut of UFC on Fox Sports Net. You can talk to us about that. I have not seen that show. Of course, we mentioned before, SmackDown is tonight. There is the weirdest, this is maybe one of the weirdest stories that I have ever heard around pro wrestling. Wrestler Messiah from Epic Pro Wrestling had his thumb cut off on Thursday night in an attack by two people, and they believe that it's wrestling war related. Of course, Messiah had formerly worked for XPW. It is just the weirdest thing. They attacked him. They hit him over the head with a fishbowl. The police are looking for the two guys who sped away. Jerry Jarrett, of course, Jerry Jarrett filed a lawsuit against Jay Hassman, Lynn Sable, and their companies for fraud and things like that early in the week. Mitsuharu Misawa was wrestling in the United States on Friday night in Fairfield, California, and I happened to be there. It was quite an interesting night. We can talk about that and many other things. We've got, let's see, of course, and one other thing we should talk about is Don Owen passed away on Thursday. Brian, do you have any memories? I guess Don Owen would have been slightly before your time, but I'm sure that like the older wrestlers that you've known, and being that you're from the Pacific Northwest, Don Owen, a promoter in Portland, Oregon, and I'm thinking that nobody spent more time working tenure-wise in professional wrestling ever than Don Owen, because Don Owen started when he was 13 years old, working for his father, and he was 79 years old, I believe, when he called it quits. So we can talk about Don Owen. In fact, Brian, we'll talk with Brian about Don Owen right after this, and we'll start taking phone calls very shortly thereafter. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
We're back with Wrestling Observer Live. Give us a call anywhere in the U.S. toll-free at 1-866-OBSERVER. That's 1-866-627-3783. Once again, here's Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here for 2 hours on Sunday nights with Wrestling Observer Live, talking about all the news in pro wrestling. And one of the things that happened this past week, a sad story, the death of Don Owen, who was 90 years old. It's not quite as sad, I guess, when someone who's 90 years old dies than, some people who are quite a bit younger, which we've reported on far too often. Don Owens started in the wrestling business working for his father in 1925. And his father promoted Oregon for a long time, and then he took over promoting Oregon, promoted until his last show was in 1992. Saw everyone from Gorgeous George to Fez to all the greats of every up until, the very end. And, Brian, from the Pacific Northwest, I'm sure that a lot of the older wrestlers, I'm sure every older wrestler that you come in contact with probably has Don Owen stories.
Actually, Don was before my time because he shouldn't have been, but I got into wrestling at a period where I really never had the opportunity to watch his shows, but the shows were available around here, and, a lot of the fans in this area, they all remember Portland wrestling, and I mean, it was a big deal.
I remember Portland wrestling as a kid. We actually got it in California for a brief period of time, but, later, through the magic of videotape, Portland was the last of the old smoky club wrestling television shows. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, where you would get 2 out of 3 fall main events. They would go 20, 25 minutes. You'd have these crowds that were into, it was a total ring psychology product and, total, interview laden, the old, Portland was of all the old territories. Jarrett actually lasted the longest. He was the last to go. I think he went in 97, whatever year it was. Don Owens was the second to last to go, where they would work the same cities, 6 nights a week, weekly towns, do their promos. Next Thursday, Rip Oliver, I Want You, In the Cage. The old style stuff that it's a great art to learn because those kind of the people who came out of Portland, many of them, like Roddy Piper and so many others, were able to go anywhere because they had the ability to talk people into the buildings.
Yeah, everybody went through there for a long period of time, knew how to work, and so many stars went.
Well, Jesse
came from there. Well, not everybody.
Although Jesse, that was Jesse's first success, and that's where he learned to talk. So
Yeah, and I've gone to Portland for shows probably several dozen times, and I'm always going down with somebody who worked there when Don was the promoter, and I've heard 15 million stories, and everybody says great things about Don. He was good with money and everything like that. So not like some promoters where you hear the stories and it's like, God, I didn't work for him. I hear the stories and go, I wish that it was still like that. But things change.
Things change. It's a different business. Don Owens. What Portland Wrestling was the epitome of what a developmental territory should be. In fact, even in the 90s, after Don Owens closed up shop, when people would talk in WCW, it wasn't so much, WWF wasn't thinking developmental. WCW was actually thinking that first, believe it or not. And it was always, let's send a crew up to Oregon and, do what Don Owens did, run those weekly towns. And, it never happened, and probably in some ways it's probably, I don't know if it's good or it's bad that it didn't, because they would have lost track of everything and someone would have stolen blind, but...
Yeah, any old fan now, you tell them that you're wrestling in Portland, and it's like, oh, my God, you're wrestling in Portland. And no offense to anybody promoting in Portland now, but it's not the same place.
No, and they had their glory days, and what a great place to learn. It's actually very reminiscent of OVW, except obviously they drew a lot more people. And when you did those interviews, and you saw the house go up and down by the week, and you actually could draw people. Like in OVW, they teach them like all the right things to do in their in that 80s way. But, it doesn't matter. Those guys can go out there and do the greatest interview in the world or the worst interview in the world, and it's not going to sell one more ticket. But they're being taught that art, okay? Whether the art, and the art will help them when they get to WWE point. But in Portland in the old days, you get, I remember there's interviews I remember to this day, where, Stan Stasiak and Dutch Savage and Lord Jonathan Boyd and Buddy Rose and Roddy Piper and these guys, they did these interviews, and it was like, my God, I want to go there Saturday night at the Sports Arena, which one of the places I always wished I went. I never went.
Yeah.
I never got to Portland. I never got to the Omni. Got almost everywhere else though. We will start taking some calls right now. We're going to go first to Ed. Now that we're with Sean in Bronx, New York. Sean, you're first up.
Hi, Dave. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
I'd like to get your response to Bob Ryder's column. And then he accused you of putting over Frank Shamrock in The Observer due to your special relationship with him.
In what sense? What have I said about him that's not... he's, everyone knows Frank Shamrock and I are best friends, but put over... what have I even written about him in the last couple months, other than the fact that he's, was scheduled to fight and is now scheduled to fight elsewhere? If I'd written, like, all these, great articles of Frank Shamrock's the greatest this, the greatest that, I don't even write about him. Hardly.
So you two aren't swapping the sperm?
Oh, wonderful guy. Ed, can you top that?
Hey, what I want to talk about is I was reading that China's going to book for a tour of New Japan.
Sure is. September.
Do you think there's any chance that that's going to get over with the fan base?
No.
I can't imagine her.
No, they don't know. They don't know what their fans want. I think that we've learned that.
And I don't think they know what they're going to get.
Now, I don't know what they're going to do, okay?
Even the China that was wrestling Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, but I don't know that they know what they're going to do either. I know it has been suggested to bring China in as a special attraction and have her work like, third, fourth match on the show and beat young guys. And I hope to God those poor young guys, because, those young guys there, they're all athletes, and it's just, it worked to a degree in WWF because she was huge and it was a weird thing that caught on, but really, for all those guys that put her over, I don't think it helped any of them. It didn't help Eddie Guerrero. It certainly didn't help Jericho that he's going in 50-50 with this woman. And, but in Japan it would be far worse. It's just not, I don't think it's what the fan base wants. I know it's not what the fan base wants. Inoki, probably just, he's in the United States and sees that she's a celebrity and knows that WWF is so over in Japan and figures, well, it's a WWF star from the glory days, but it doesn't mix.
Plus all those headlines about when Joey Buttafuoco beat her.
It made news.
Like nobody that was a wrestling fan, didn't read those articles. Everybody read that article. And
yeah, in Japan that was big news. People know it, so that, and they don't know who Joey Buttafuoco is over there.
They knew he was a big fat guy that wasn't a fighter.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm really scared. I just don't want to read that she, reach the internet and see that she beat Dr. Wanger or
Wagner
or something.
That would be depressing.
That would be really bad. I'm afraid she's going to be one of those college champions.
Wagner Jr. could have a good match with her.
No, he can't.
You're right.
I don't think you should.
You know what? He might not even try. I've seen him when he has to wrestle Silva and guys like that.
I wonder if Liger could. I'm betting no.
No,
I don't think he could.
Yeah. Not now, especially with because when she did that referee gig at the Tokyo Dome thing, it was just stupid when Hiroshi Tanahashi had to sell for her.
Yeah, and then she didn't sell for him at all.
No, I know. Boy, those. She should not wrestle. I don't know what they can. I don't know what they can.
Those young guys will get the rub, right?
I don't know what they can do with her. What can they do? I mean, just having her come to the towns and say hi, that's not going to mean anything. I don't know what you do, but she's coming.
Yeah. Also, I like to ask, since they had Moolah and Mae Young on, and it got me thinking. I found this old magazine, an After Mag, that it ranks the top 50 women's wrestlers, and
oh god,
it's pretty favoritism. I mean, the Japanese are in the 20s.
Who do they say is number one? Moolah?
Moolah's number one.
Oh god.
Finers is number 2.
Mildred Burke number 3.
Number 3, Mae Young number 4. Vivian Vachon number 5.
Okay. Well, realistically, and I never saw Mildred Burke. Obviously, she was way before my time. But I saw Moolah from 1970 on, and Vivian Vachon and all of them. Okay. There's never been a woman wrestler in the United States who can hold a candle to even the average women wrestlers in Japan. That's the reality. And I don't care what they're not even in the same league. If you're talking about, except for say maybe Leilani Kai, I don't think that there's any woman that's wrestled in the United States that would be, in the league of the top 25 in Japan.
Yeah, the highest Japanese, I never heard of her. Her name's Jaguar Yokota. Jaguar
Yokota was the first really super worker of the women wrestlers in Japan. I think she gets credit for being the best because she was the first. She was like Manami Toyota, but like an earlier incarnation. You know what I mean? Like, kind of a pretty girl who flew around the ring and did all kinds of moves and could outwork all the men. She'd be one of the best of all time. No doubt about it. And she's, I say Jaguar's a pioneer because what happened with her is the Japanese women wrestlers of the 70s, even Jackie Sato, who was kind of like the big legend, they were not really that good. Compared to some of the wrestlers that came later. Jaguar was the first just super awesome worker. And then after her, they had so many others. Okay, Ed, we got to get running because we got to get some more calls.
All right, guys.
Actually, we got to head to a break right now. We got a full bank of calls. You can jump in at 1-866-OBSERVER when you get a hang-up, which is like right this second, so you better jump on it now. And hopefully we'll get some news from Richmond, Virginia, and SmackDown in a little while as well. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Time for more Wrestling Observer Live. Email the show now or anytime at WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. That's WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. Now back to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Also remind everyone, for information on how to get either the Wrestling Observer Newsletter or Figure 4 Weekly, you can go to www.WrestlingObserver.com. Wrestling Observer, most detailed information on pro wrestling anywhere, and Figure 4. I didn't get it on Saturday.
Oh.
I'm going to get it on Monday. You know what that means? That means bad mood on Saturday for me.
Wow.
It wasn't the only reason, but it was one. It was one of them. Brian, did you see the Confidential?
Saturday would have been a bad day to get it, though.
Yeah. Did you see Confidential last night?
No, unfortunately. I have it on tape, but I haven't watched it yet.
We actually got a call on that. We're going to get to. I expected that we were going to talk a lot about Confidential. You're going to hear the story of why WCW folded.
Oh, good.
You know what the story was? You know why?
I can only guess.
Can't. It was because They signed
at the airport.
No, because they signed Bret Hart to that contract, and that was the beginning of the end.
Oh, yeah.
That was the beginning of the end. And
well, you know what? In some ways, it was the beginning of the end.
Oh, well, but
not for the reasons that I'm sure they said on Confidential.
No, you know what the reasons were. You know who said that, and the reasons they said. You're gonna love this one. And you have to watch this. It's Hogan. Now, Eric Bischoff's not gonna say anything bad about Bret Hart, but Hogan, you know his good buddy.
Yeah.
You know the deal is like Hulk Hogan was making all that money, okay? But you know Hulk Hogan, you know he had a track record. He drew 94,000 people in Pontiac. Those were his numbers.
Yeah.
Bret Hart, you're paying all that money to someone who didn't have a track record. And it was just so bad. And, I mean, what he said was, it's like, you know, all of a sudden I realized if Bret Hart's worth what he was getting, then I was worth $20 to $40 million a year, and I was being underpaid. He said that. I'm not making any of that up. Let's go to Jonathan. Jonathan, in Savannah, Georgia, what's your thoughts? I know you want to talk about Confidential.
Yeah, that's all I want to ask you guys, but you kind of already answered my
I read your mind. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was exactly what I was going to ask you about. I had a couple more questions, but my first one was about Hogan and him trying to put himself over on Confidential and how he's saying that they shouldn't have gave Bret Hart all that money to some, like, I guess, in the effect, a jabroni compared to
yeah, he made it, you know, this guy had no track record as a draw anywhere. Right. Forgetting that at that time, arguably, I mean, if you talk November 1997, and you were talking about who the number one guy in the business was in November 1997. I mean, there was no clear cut. Austin was coming up there. Michaels was pretty hot. Bret was there, and Hogan was there. And those were the guys, and none was really that big of a standout over the others. And getting Bret Hart at that time was a great coup for WCW, but then they screwed it up. And, you know, the reason they screwed it up was...
I have to say this about Hogan during that period, though. Whatever money he might have been making at that period, he was causing so much damage that, you know, whether he was selling tickets or not, he was starting the decline.
Yeah. Of course, you know the other reason, by the way, why they went out of business. Guaranteed.
Another one?
Yeah, guaranteed contracts.
Oh, yeah.
What else? What were the... Jonathan, remember some of the other reasons? It was like... It was not... No one mentioned bad booking. Oh, also, that horrible management at Time Warner... kept getting involved. And it's like, did they tell you to make Arquette champion? And then Arquette was like, wait, did they tell you to do the one-finger push? Did they tell you to beat Goldberg with Nash? Did they tell you to run those horrible skits, those horrible nitros, those horrible thunders? I mean, Bischoff was out actually on the show going, you know, we used to book this stuff like, you know, right as we were getting in the building, right as the show was going on. I mean, they were, and you know, we all remember the nitro stories. As the show was going on, they're booking the segment that's 5 minutes later. I mean, I don't know. That's why the company went out of business, because they ran all their fans off. No other reason. And no one said that last night. It really bothered me that Gene Okerlund opened the show. I'm getting on a roll on this one. Gene Okerlund opened the show, Brian.
Don West.
Yeah, yeah, right. So anyway, and he said, I don't know where this line comes from. Those who do not learn from the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat them.
He really said that?
Yes.
Wow.
He really said that.
He's the only one on the entire show that knows then.
No, but the mistakes were guaranteed contracts and paying Bret Hart money.
Oh.
The mistakes weren't, you know, the stupid booking or the bad television. No, there was never a mention of that other than the NWO angle made them and then it strangled them. And Bischoff, you know, talked about, you know, how, you know, the problem was the merger, you know, and all these things that, you know, were problems. But the thing that killed WCW, and there was only one thing that killed it, was that people stopped buying tickets. People stopped buying the pay-per-views. That's it. No other reason. If it wasn't for that, it'd still be alive today.
Yep.
And why did that happen? It wasn't because of faceless corporate management. It wasn't because of Bret Hart. It wasn't even because of Vince McMahon and Steve Austin.
The building.
Yeah, DX at the building, exactly. Anything else, Jonathan? Because we got to get running.
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Sure.
Do you think Vince is kicking himself for giving Mark Henry and Big Show such large contracts for such a...
Oh, my God. Yeah, he is. But that was the other fun one. Big Show.
Yeah.
All they do is talk about all of these guys and how horrible guaranteed contracts are. And then they come up with Big Show. And he cried because Eric didn't give him as much money as Vince in a guaranteed contract. And it's like, you know, I mean, if Bret Hart was a mistake, and historically it will be regarded as one because they didn't take advantage of what they had, then what's Big Show? Because that was a 10-year contract. Bret Hart was only a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we are going to go to John in Chicago, who also wants to talk about Confidential. What's going on, John?
Yeah, Dave, but you forgot to mention the most hilarious comment was the one at the end when Bischoff is saying, well, I was glad that WCW was going into the hands of somebody who knew how to run it.
He said that.
I almost fell over laughing.
I know. That was unbelievable, too.
I was like, you're acknowledging, I'm assuming, well, maybe this is wrong. I'm assuming that mostly people who are interested in the knowledge, well, again, this is probably, I was thinking people like smart fans are actually watching this show, but probably that's not the majority of the audience. Because, like you're saying, a smart a person who looked for the information, who's looked for the information, who's visited, certain websites and newsletters could discern the truth from that report.
When it comes to fiction, I think that this one last night was way worse than the Bret Hart one.
But you could, if you were somebody who's been interested in the sport a long time, and who goes, who looks for the real news, you could get the truth kind of from there.
Maybe that's why that show is dying in the ratings, because it kind of is a show that's geared towards like the more hardcore fan that's going to go out of his way to find out this information. And then they watch his show and they're just lied to, and they know.
Right.
Maybe.
So what's the point of even watching the show anymore?
I mean, and that's the same thing I'm having a problem with now with the Raw and SmackDown deal. It's nice that they're supposedly having this rivalry, but it still feels false.
Because it is false.
Yeah, it is.
One of the things last night in Miami, and they did it last weekend too. They had the Brock Lesnar and Benoit worked on the Raw show, and it's like if your storylines, you cannot carry your storylines over to your house shows where the most hardest of your hardcore fans in every city are going.
Right.
Okay, you're telling those fans that there's only maybe 3,000 people or 4,000 people going to these house shows, but those are your real base audience, and they're going there and they get to the building and they're slapped in the face. If they want to believe that the fake thing, the rivalry, which they know it is, but if they want to believe it, they're being told, you are a fool, it's all one company, and we're just doing something for TV ratings, and they're going to just, it's just...
That's why I used to hate it when they would, change the title on a house show and then make no mention of it, because it's like going, we just did something in your town, and your town means so little.
What you saw doesn't count. They used to think...
They did the same thing last night. They supposedly advertised for HBK, and he didn't show up?
Yeah, but, okay, there's a thing on that one. Okay, the reason he didn't show up, I guess, is because they could say that they were selling...
the entry.
They were selling the injury, but they should have made an announcement at the beginning of the show. We advertised HBK, he's injured. But then the problem there is everyone's going, but the injury, everyone knows the injury's not real. They painted themselves in that corner.
Right.
So, but, he didn't show up.
And I still believe Triple H is going to end up being the guy who did it to him.
Why not? He was the one who ran over Austin, even though...
He doesn't do his job in the parking garage.
Right. Were you kind of laughing? I was laughing to that promo, too, where he says, okay, I don't do my work in parking lots, and
Yeah, I know.
People are stealing spotlight. You've been stealing the spotlight for so long. You won't let other people share it.
Why do you step aside?
Yeah. Some fascinating stuff on those shows. That's all I can say. It's fascinating. Anyway, we're going to go to Eric in Hartford, Connecticut. Eric, what's going on?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Doing really good.
I got two things I want to touch on.
Okay.
First, has WWE given any consideration to having Hogan's last match at Survivor Series since it's going to be at the Garden? I know his book's going to be coming out probably right around then.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I
built on him.
I mean, he. Yeah, I know. I don't think that he's going anywhere anytime soon.
You think WrestleMania might be the swan song?
I don't think he's ever going to. I don't think there'll ever be swan song.
Really?
No, I think he's going to go as long as until the people reject him like they did in WCW, and then they'll have to fade him out.
I think they're smart enough this time where they'll never overexpose him that badly again.
Because I imagine he'll take time off of TV, won't he, when the book comes out to do the big tour, the publicity tour and all?
He actually may want to be on TV as much as possible during that period to maximize sales. He'll probably work his ass off during that period. Because that's, he's not afraid to promote. He's not afraid to work hard to promote. Anyway, we are going to be heading to a break right now. We're going to come back with more full bank of calls. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
We're back with Wrestling Observer Live. Give us a call anywhere in the U.S. toll-free at 1-866-OBSERVER. That's 1-866-627-3783. Once again, here's Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here for 2 hours tonight talking pro wrestling, and we've got tons of phone calls. We're going to go to Matt in Boston, who wants to talk about New Japan. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, guys. Quickly, I want to talk about what Hogan said. He said he drew 200,000 in the con.
He did say that.
Which is completely absurd because it only holds 16,000.
And he never sold the Budokan out once that I'm aware of.
I don't recall that ever happening.
He may have been part of a show that sold out the Budokan in those, in that early New Japan days.
Yeah.
But Hulk Hogan was a big deal in Japan, but I don't remember Hulk Hogan actually ever even selling out the Tokyo Dome, let alone, he was on some shows that drew well. But I remember, as I recall, when Hogan would go to Japan, this was in the mid-'90s and stuff, that the houses were actually usually a disappointment. I know he once sold out the Yokohama Arena, but that was with, plenty of other big stars on the show as well.
Can you imagine the Observer that you're going to have to write when his book comes out?
By Moolah's book's out. But, that was harmless. What could I say?
That's the point.
I'm just really imagining the Observer I have to write tomorrow just about that stupid Confidential show.
That's true. About China in September, aren't they doing the G1 World Tournament?
Don't. They may. I haven't heard that for sure that they are, but
the only bad thing that come out of that is she wins, then she has to fight the winner of the G1 Climax. But
she's not going to win.
Yeah.
I will say this. Now that you bring that up, okay?
Yeah.
I actually have an incredibly perverse desire now to see singles matches with China against Don Fry and Scott Norton.
Well, they'd kill her, so yeah, that's...
Well, I just want to hear, them them being told, you've got to give her 30% before you beat her. Especially Scott Norton, even more than Don Fry, because Scott Norton's a totally irrational guy.
The reason I called was actually about the G1 Climax. I was wondering what you thought about Chono's booking thus far.
I like it. It's, at least he's, putting, Kenzo Suzuki got a big win. Hiroshi Tanahashi got a big win. Quick wins. They're, Yasuda's not getting in the ring for any length of time. I think they're trying to protect him. Yasuda and Fujita are doing a shoot on, on the 8th.
Yeah.
That's weird. Anyway, so.
Also, who do you think will make the semifinals and then the finals? I have, Tenzan wins Block A, Nagata Block B, and then the runner-up for Block B would be Nakanishi. Runner-up Block A would be Takayama. Sound about possibility?
I think that you may have the right 4. I'm figuring Takayama's got to go to the 4. Maybe Sasaki. Maybe not. Nagata should be in there.
Yeah.
Maybe Tenzan or Chono thrown in there, but those would be the contenders. I think that you got, I think that you may have certainly that's pretty much what I would think too now. Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks.
Okay, very welcome. Yeah, God, I got to rewatch that thing. Hogan, oh God, my God.
He was in rare form.
Yeah, he sure was. Let's go to Chris in Long Island. Chris, what's happening?
Hi, Dave. How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
I kind of want to talk about the same thing, just a couple of things. Hogan, the show in Korea, I thought he was maybe refereeing that, but he wasn't even on that show.
He didn't do that show. That was Ric Flair and Inoki.
That's what I mean. That's why I
think that maybe he hallucinated and thought he was Ric Flair.
Is there even a building that holds 200,000 people in the world that has any kind of...
I think there's some soccer stadiums in Brazil.
Okay, well, he's never done those.
No, he's never done those.
What the hell was he thinking about? I don't...
He's just a...
You know what's funny? Every time Hogan opens his mouth, he lies. If you read all those newspaper articles, there's always a lie in there somewhere, and every time he does it... I was just thinking about his book. I cannot even imagine what this book is going to be like.
It's going to be unbelievable, because you're right, and there's going to be no fact-checking, because,
some guys, when they do an interview, they'll tell, generally the truth. Hogan has no concept of what the truth is, I don't think.
Yeah.
He even upped Pontiac attendance by 1,000, because I think it was up to 94,000 last night.
He upped it by 16. But what's funny is there was a guy who was over my house on Thursday. Tom Hackett's his name, and he's writing a book on professional wrestling. And he told me, he said, the first time I interviewed Hulk Hogan, the first thing he said was, I make more money than the whole company of General Motors. Before I even asked him a question, and he just goes to me and he goes, what kind of a person says something like that? And I said, someone who's very insecure. And Hogan, he shouldn't be so freaking insecure. I mean, he's got to prove. He's got a place, he's got a place in the legacy of this business as, a draw like nobody has probably ever been, him or Austin.
He exaggerates the things he already gets credit for. Everybody knows he's a huge star. Everybody knows he's one of, if not the biggest draws ever. And the only thing he's ever been knocked for is his work rate, and it's not like he's ever made an attempt to improve that, so I don't understand where his whole...
And he's never bragged about being the best worker anyway.
But I mean, if
that old school mentality where everything has to be exaggerated.
Well, you got to remember that.
Started out in wrestling and then just, became his whole life.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember that the guys in wrestling who were the product of the territories and of the 80s learned it was all what's carny? It was all a con. Their whole life, everything about life was a con. And the ones who survived that, to be relatively honest...
I was going to say, some of them outgrew that.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Ric Flair isn't really like that. I mean...
No, not to that degree. Not to that degree. But Ric Flair was a product of that environment, too. But
he's kind of changed with the time.
Yeah, but...
that people aren't...
Yeah, the younger guys, for the most part, are much, much better. You read their interviews. Yeah. I mean, even Triple H, sometimes I'll sit here and go, he's full of it, but he's not really full of it. It's just his perspective on it, and I understand his perspective. I just don't agree with it.
I kind of wanted to talk about him too. And Vince, the whole thing with Confidential, with the way, like you've been saying, he's been rewriting history.
Yeah, that's the whole object of the show.
That was his whole, and it seems like that's the reason he even, or at least it ended up being the reason he ended up buying WCW. Like the only thing he's gotten out of the whole thing is that he can now manipulate history to what he wants it to be.
Right. That they never beat him. He was on trial, 3 years earlier, yeah. And they never had a better product, and they never had better wrestlers, and that had nothing to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole, the publications like The Observer that'll have the actual story, people aren't going to reference years from now because, it's not a mass thing, so they're going to go to this, and whatever Vince...
I don't think people are going to 20 years from now go to Confidential for the truth either. I'm pretty darn sure of that.
But it's just...
Or Raw Magazine.
But just in terms of just how it came out of any WWF publication or any interview where they're...
I think... Yeah.
So many times.
Chris, you know what the one thing that really will be the one is the Sex, Lies, and Headlocks book that we talked about last week. Whether for better or for worse, that's the one that all the real people, when they go to research, because it's going to be the history book. I kind of wish I had written one. But
for some reason, I think what Brian was saying that time he tried to print something in Penthouse about
the great
height, and they won't let you put the real height or the real weight, even because WWF has set up for so long they believe that, and also the
Silverdome story.
Actually, now the Silverdome thing has been printed. The real attendance in so many places. He would never have that problem.
Okay.
Oh no, this was like a year ago.
No, now because in Sex, Lies, and Headlocks they say that the real number is 78,000, and you could reference that.
I literally think that I had an email off the record from the promoter, and they wouldn't even accept that. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
That was just one of a million different things that happened when I was writing from there. I mean, sometimes I think back and go, I must have looked like the dumbest person in the world writing about wrestling.
You know what's funny? What's funny is I know Brian, you know the story. But some friends of mine still can't believe the story. And it was when Andre died, and Sports Illustrated, printed his height as 7'4", 7'5", whatever it was, and I, just sent an email to Sports Illustrated, and just go, he was really only 6'10". That was an exaggeration. And they wrote back to me and they said, we know who you are. I'd written for him before. We know you are, and we know you're right. But since everyone else is saying 7'5", we don't think that we need to make a correction. That was what they said.
That's right.
So anyway, we're gonna run on. Let's go to Chris in Savannah, Georgia. Chris, what's going on?
Not much, Dave. How you doing?
Doing really good.
I had a question about this Messiah deal. Well, about this Messiah deal with his losing his thumb and all this other deal. He didn't lose anything else, did he?
They tried. They tried for both thumbs. They tried for his privates, but they only got one thumb.
And this is wrestling business related, and I know and I expect no speculation from you. But is there any proof? His former employer was not so happy with his.
Hey, that's the story. I don't know. The police are investigating that very thing. But you're the police are looking at the same thing you're about to say. I don't want to say because what if it's not? But yeah,
of course.
Yeah, that's the score. That's the scoop. But yeah, they're looking.
Him as a worker, will he be able to return from this?
I'm of the impression he's going to wrestle again.
I mean, Kerry Von Erich wrestled without a foot.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And guys, the UFC television show was really well done.
Really?
I thought, it was superb. It looked so professional. And aside from the UFC crowd shots where nobody's sitting in the audience back there, which, obviously hurts in a way, but oh gosh, I thought the show was I thought it was a home run. In my opinion, that was me. And I haven't ordered too many pay-per-views. I have the hits 1 and 2 on DVD, and I've seen all the prides. But this might actually spark my interest into paying for a pay-per-view. And that Lawler and what was the other guy's name?
Aaron Riley. That was a fantastic fight.
Wasn't it? God.
That was one of the best fights they ever had. Yeah, you remember that fight, Brian? Robbie Lawler, Aaron Riley, where they just
Yeah,
that fight was out of this world.
And I mean the production.
Oh, they aired that one tonight?
Yeah, they aired that tonight. Yeah, they aired that, and yeah.
And the production was phenomenal, in my opinion, far greater than what I expected. So, and the show was really tight and clipped well, not to the point where I thought I'm missing anything. Just needless ring girls walking around and stuff like that. But
well, they know this is important.
Yep. They were. I think they might have been preempted in New York City though.
Oh.
Which isn't good after all that city.
I have a quick question. Do you think Kawada's through with trying to play the political games now? And on this UFO show with Yasuda and who's
Vegeta.
And Vegeta, isn't it pretty much a last-ditch effort to sell tickets because everybody knows the advance is
it's going to die.
Lower than a snail's pace.
Yeah, it's going to die, and they're going to have to give away all the tickets. However many people they get in that building, they're all going to be given away.
Well, yeah, they're going to pay for the whole place.
They have to because it's going to be live TV, so you have to have people in the building. Chris, we got to get running, okay?
All right, thanks, Dave.
Okay, you're very welcome. We're going to Chuck in Runnymede, New Jersey. Chuck, what's going on?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I got a two-part question I'd like you to comment on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the chances now down the line of a feud in the WWE between Eric Bischoff and Steve Austin, and do you think it would draw?
If Austin comes back, I don't, I think there's a decent shot that they would do it. I mean, it wouldn't draw based on anything that's happened because people don't know the story. I mean, they could tell a little bit of it, but people won't care but the fact that if the two guys, good performers, do great interviews and have a compelling storyline, modern, it might mean something.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything needs to always be rewritten from the beginning, no matter, I think WWF assumes that everybody knows all these stories. I mean, even if it's the most obvious thing in the world that everyone supposedly knows, like Montreal, I think every story needs to be rewritten from the beginning, from this point forward, for everything, in order to try and, get over any angle.
Chuck, real quick, second question.
Yeah, going back to what they were talking about, the Messiah incident, that group from California is supposed to run here in Philadelphia. Do you think that will ever come off?
I expect that it will. I mean, selling tickets already. I mean,
you have a licensing problem?
They got a licensing problem, yeah, so who knows? But usually when that happens, they get someone's license at the last minute, so.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thanks very much, Chuck. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Hey, this is Bret Hart. It's Wrestling Observer Live with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Two guys who eat, sleep, and drink pro wrestling, even when it doesn't taste good.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Elite Weekly. And hopefully we'll hear from someone from Richmond, Virginia shortly. But we've got a full bank of calls. We're going to get to David in Long Island. David, what's going on?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
You left out another funny thing that Big Show said last night.
Oh, there was a lot of funny stuff on that subject. Bring one up, yes.
Besides complaining about the money, he said that, he said that Bischoff told him he wasn't over enough to warrant the amount of money he
warrant the amount of money that Vince paid him, yes, that was hilarious.
Oh, and then he said, I thought, I'm going to go someplace where I'm going to go get really over.
He hasn't gotten there yet. I think maybe in OVW.
Well, he got bald there, but...
Yeah.
I was wondering also, speaking of OVW, it's sad hearing about Jim Cornette's mother, but...
Yeah, that was sad.
Why are they going to reruns instead of just having someone else book the promotion like he did with Kevin Kelly when he was in the hospital?
I guess that they feel that no one else can. Plus, I think they pretty much want to be out of that building anyway. So they're just, when they start in the new building, that's when Cornette will be back, and that's when everything will start going with new tapes.
Okay. Have you seen anything from Taylor from Tough Enough in Japan yet?
No, I have not. Have you?
Yeah, she's getting better.
Oh, good. Good for her.
Is she taking a beating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of this. What's amazing is the percentage of those Tough Enough people that are actually in wrestling and going for it.
Yeah.
Al Snow must be a hell of a trainer. Because, I mean, you know, I look at all these wrestling schools around here, and you don't have like 50% of the guys running around. And granted, they all have, they have a great advantage as far as exposure. But, I mean, so many people quit, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, anything else, David? Because we're going to have to run to our break.
That's it.
Okay, thanks a bunch, David. Okay, we'll be back for the second hour. You can call us at 1-866-OBSERVER. And you're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
Okay, welcome to the second hour here of Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're going to be taking your phone calls on so many different subjects here having to do with pro wrestling. Pretty big week, it seems like.
I got one more thing to say about the Tough Enough, by the way.
Yes.
Obviously, I've seen like a million guys with just, working indies and everything like that. And the one thing is, they were not offered $300 per show.
Good point.
So, I was just reading the Observer about what some of these Tough Enough guys are asking for, and it's like, oh my God.
They're not really getting it, though. I mean,
I'm not surprised by that.
How many bookings do you really hear the Tough Enough people getting?
Yeah.
And Josh, I guess, Josh isn't even wrestling anymore. Josh is trying to work in television production and World Wrestling Entertainment. I want to make mention really quick, Shauna Sale on Thursday will be on Ron Barr's Sports Byline USA show. So we just had him on last week. And Brian, I was about to ask you, what did you think of SmackDown?
I thought SmackDown was awesome.
So did I.
I've been so impressed with pretty much every show since this latest restart. And so I'm just shocked at, getting the ratings Tuesday afternoon and Friday, and it's just like, you would think that things would maybe not so much turn around, but at least stay steady.
I know.
And that's not even happening. I mean, SmackDown was such a great show, and
I mean, I didn't expect a big rating because they're not ready for a big rating. Why would it be dropping now when they're putting on consistently good shows?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, usually, we've had the restarts that have always done a good number, and then the next week's just been hideous, and it goes down from there. But this is like, they had a good restart, and then the shows have been good since then, and the ratings not reflect that, so I don't know why. I just have so much praise for all those guys in the main event on SmackDown. I mean, they all did, in their own way, everything they did was so awesome, and what a show.
How about Mysterio and Tajiri?
Yep, great match.
Great, yeah. Who else was really good? I mean, he didn't really get the time to show it, was Rico Constantino.
Oh, yeah.
That guy, I mean, they have something untapped in him, that...
He looks so much better than Cena.
Yeah, well, he's better than Cena.
Yeah.
That's why. But
Cena... At the push that each guy is getting, and one guy is just this total comedy figure, and the other guy is, let's build around this guy, and I mean, I can understand that Rico's old and
Cena's young.
He doesn't have a lot of time left, but on TV, he's John Cena's age.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but they don't look at it that way. And John Cena, a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for because he can talk and all that. And
he should be a heel by now, I've decided.
He will be a heel.
No more babyface promos for that guy.
Yeah, they don't know it yet. We're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Time for more Wrestling Observer Live. Email the show now or anytime at WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. That's WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. Now back to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Brian, I was thinking during the break about Hogan. And the show in Korea and everything like that. You know the story behind why Hogan didn't draw 170,000 people in Pyongyang Stadium?
Why he didn't?
Yes, and why it was...
The fact that he wasn't there?
Well, that's the real... Yeah, but you know that he was offered the spot.
Was he? Against Inoki?
Yep, and you know what? Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, he could be, in that match, which would have been the biggest crowd in the history of wrestling, and that 170,000 figure, that one's going to hold up for a while. I don't think that there's any stadiums in this country that they're going to do a WrestleMania in. And even if they did, I don't know about 170,000 people. They can get 65 every year. But so anyway, that's a record that's going to hold up maybe for our lifetime. And he had it handed to him. and they asked him to do a job, and he said no, he didn't want to do the job. Ric Flair was glad to do it. And so now he's just going to have to make up for the rest of his life that he was in the match and he won.
Well, speaking of Hogan and jobs, LordsOfPain.net has the SmackDown results up.
Okay.
For this coming Thursday, and it actually looks like a hell of a show.
Really?
Which it has been lately, just from a booking standpoint. You want me to go over all the results?
Yeah.
Cena beat Kurt Angle via DQ when Benoit ran in, and that set up a six-man for later in the show, which sounds like one of the greatest six-mans of all time because Benoit, Guerrero, and Angle are all on one side.
Oh, my God.
Facing Edge, Mysterio, and John Cena.
That is such a great idea. Okay, you know what? There was a plan. I mean, and again, as you explain the thing, I mean, there was a plan for Angle and Mysterio for the pay-per-view.
Well, we're going to have it because Rey Mysterio Jr. pinned Kurt Angle with Hurricane Rana clean.
Okay, so Kurt beats him back at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, so...
Okay, so that's the way that one goes. Okay. That was exactly how I was told the story.
Yep, they're splitting up Batista and Reverend Devon.
Well, you knew that was coming.
Yeah, Henry beat Devon, and then Rikishi made the save and challenged Batista to do a match, and Devon, I guess, did something, and Rikishi super kicked Batista and pinned him, which to me just sounds like a hideous idea, but whatever. Then they had the segment with Lesnar.
That is a hideous idea, by the way.
Yes. Lesnar, Heyman, and Hogan have a little conversation, and Hogan talks Brock Lesnar into putting his title on the line, his title shot on the line in the match later. So, obviously, you know what happens there.
Yeah.
Hurricane and Shannon Moore beat Billy and Chucky. So Shannon Moore debuts on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the match with Edge, Cena, and Mysterio, Benoit, Guerrero, and Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle goes crazy and says he's going to break Mysterio's ankle. So there's your pay-per-view match.
Mm-hmm.
Noble and Nydia beat Kidman and Tori Wilson. And not a lot of details there, looks like. And then main event, I guess, is the main part of the show. Hulk Hogan does the job to the bear hug. To Brock.
The bear hug?
Yeah, he hit him with the F5 and then put him in a bear hug, and Hogan was dead, so the referee gave the match to Lesnar.
Wow.
And Lesnar destroys him afterwards, hits him with the chair. Hogan bleeds. And then Lesnar cuts the promo saying he has the blood of Hulk Hogan on him, and at SummerSlam he will have the blood of The Rock on him as well. And that's the end.
Well, I give Hogan credit for doing, I will say this, at the end of his career, he is doing the right thing.
In fact, I just wrote about that today, and I kind of felt bad because we were running down Hogan at the beginning of the show.
Well, it doesn't mean he's an honest man doing the right thing. He's just a liar who's doing the right thing. who's trying to, send his legacy out on a good note, and, good for, hey, he got Brock Lesnar ready. I'll tell you what, all that time they were doing the wrong stuff with Brock Lesnar, but when they finally did, boy, they sure have done it right the last 2 weeks.
It's Heyman.
Hey, Heyman.
I think Paul Heyman knows better than anyone how to get a big dude over.
I think Heyman knows more than anyone in that company how to book.
And anybody, well, that too, but anybody who saw Velocity last night, and I didn't see the show, but I have heard from people that said Mike Awesome looked so hideous. And I understand he is coming off and everything like that, but, Mike Awesome in WCW was nothing. He's been nothing here in WWE, and Paul Heyman knew what to do with that man.
Yeah. Well, they made him a star in Japan. They made him a star in Japan too.
Yeah.
But you're right. No, but Paul Heyman made a lot of guys.
He did make a lot of guys.
Hey,
911.
911, Public Enemy.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, he knew what to do.
Yeah. Anyway, let's head back to the phone calls. We're going to go to Alan in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Alan, what's going on? It's going good.
All right, I saw the Miami House show, and, it was pretty good. I wanted to ask you, because I spoke to Jim Barcelona outside the arena, and he was talking about Goldberg coming in, and what's the negotiation? What's the status?
Next weekend, Bischoff and Goldberg are going bike riding, but there's been no talks whatsoever. The only talks Goldberg's had is with several companies in Japan, nothing with WWE.
Right, and also, I don't know if you saw the Bobby the Brain Heenan interview talking about Bischoff and talking about how, what did he say, how much she despised him, and that basically, and then he said that he was going to stab Vince in the back. You think that was his true
feelings at that moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you never know with Heenan, right?
I'm sure that's his true feelings at the moment with Bobby Heenan. He's got nothing, he's not going back to work for Eric Bischoff, so he doesn't need to protect him.
Right. And I was just reading about Terry Funk and the heat he had with Hulk Hogan. You know anything about it?
They had heat years and years ago. I don't think they have any heat now.
They had it as a result of what? What was it about?
They had a problem in South Africa where where like Hogan wouldn't put Terry Funk over on some tour. This is like 20 years ago, and it was a weird thing. It wasn't Terry was working for All Japan and Hogan was working for New Japan, and I don't remember all the details. But at that time, if you understood All Japan, New Japan politics, it was a real weird thing. But they'd gotten over it. I mean, Hogan got Terry Funk into WWF, a couple years later. He worked with him on those Saturday Night Main Events. Terry Funk made him look good. I don't think there's any. There's no real problem there.
Is Austin coming back anytime soon?
Not that I'm aware.
They didn't work anything out.
I haven't. I'm sure they haven't. I'm sure they haven't as of a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Is Michael's coming back, or?
Oh yeah, he'll be back. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back Monday, if not a week from Monday for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to wrestle.
If he doesn't wrestle at SummerSlam against somebody, against either Triple H or Big Show, I don't think he's going to wrestle because they set.
Especially Hunter.
Yeah, because they set the angle up for him. If they're not going to do it now, I don't know that they're going to do it.
Right. Has Heenan's book been released yet? Because I'm looking for it all over the place.
It's at Amazon.com. It's not going to be out for a couple more weeks.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Chris in Baltimore. Chris, what's going on?
Yes, I want to talk about the Messiah.
Yes.
I have friends who are going to be going to the XPW show coming up in Philadelphia.
Yes.
I also think there's some shady doings with that also.
I'm sure there is. That's a shady organization.
Yeah, we all know Rob Black's a sleaze.
That's a nice thing to say about him.
Come on.
That's a nice thing to say, yeah.
My honest opinion is he had something to do with this. This is my honest opinion. Not anybody else's, my opinion.
Okay.
Zandig, John Zandig, if you know who John Zandig is.
Of course.
He will be having a show also that same day in Dover, Delaware.
Okay.
It's called the Tournament of Death. It's going to be a non-sanctioned CCW show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, do you think this is like a war thing starting between the two?
There's going to be wars with everyone over there because you got a lot of irrational people in the same part of the country all at once. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, but not necessarily pleasant for anyone.
With CCW,
CCW,
all that.
Them and everyone, not just them.
From what I heard yesterday from a friend of mine, said the Zandig show was originally going to be the 24th, but he couldn't get the people, so he rescheduled it for the same day as the XPW show. Do you honestly believe that?
I certainly believe it's possible. That's how wrestling promoters think.
Oh, okay. And by the way, I also watched Confidential last night. I thought it was pretty funny myself.
Yeah, well, it was.
Well, thanks a lot, man.
Okay, very welcome.
See ya.
Let's go to Ed in Winoka, Wisconsin. What's going on?
Hi, this is Ed Gein from Wisconsin.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about my favorite wrestler, Abdullah the Butcher.
Yes.
What is he up to these days?
He's in Japan with All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh.
He'll never retire,
Yeah, I know, but I haven't seen him. Does he do anything in the States or anything?
On occasion.
He's got to be like 68, right?
65?
He's old.
65. He's an old man. Let's go to Dan in Primus, New Jersey. Dan, what's going on?
Yeah, hey, Dave. We were going to get pots and pans there, by the way.
Yeah, well, we didn't.
I was dreading it.
Yes.
So what's going on?
Yes, I want to talk about the angle with Raw versus SmackDown.
Uh-huh.
Well, 2 weeks ago on Confidential, Bischoff said that, the art of surprise is lost in wrestling. And then JR, this week, when they were I believe it was JR, when they were talking about, the demise of WCW, he said, there's nothing like a live show. And that's why Nitro was beating Raw in the ratings at that time.
It had nothing to do with live and tape.
Even though the tape shows generally did better for WWE.
Yeah, with WWE, that's right. When WWE was going live and tape, if you look at the ratings, the tape shows generally did very slightly better. So live and tape was one of the biggest fallacies. Live versus tape was one of the biggest fallacies there was.
Yeah, but I was thinking because SmackDown's taped, how can you have a realistic competition between Raw and SmackDown? I mean, any.
No, that's different. That's something totally different. No, I'm talking about when Raw in the old days, when Raw would be live 1 week and then tape 3 weeks, or live 1 week and tape the next week. The tape shows almost always did better than the live shows.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows that, but that's the reality. And SmackDown Live, it meant nothing for the ratings. So Raw, live versus tape, it doesn't, people think it means something because they're on the internet and they know, but 90% of the fans, if not more, are not on the internet and they don't know what we just were talking about it happening at SmackDown, 4 days before the show or 2 days before the show. Anyway, you're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
We're back with Wrestling Observer Live. Give us a call anywhere in the U.S. toll-free at 1-866-OBSERVER. That's 1-866-627-3783. Once again, here's Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're going to go to a cell phone somewhere in Virginia to John, who has just gotten out of the SmackDown show. John, what's happening?
Not a whole lot. Just came up from Richmond, and pretty good show tonight. You want to go ahead and give you the results?
We pretty much know the results. We just want to know what your thoughts are of everything. What was good, what was bad, what you thought didn't work.
Okay, it was a pretty good show to me.
How was the crowd?
Crowd was unbelievable. Into pretty much everything except for the Devon matchup that went into the Deacon and Rikishi matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Shocker. That 10-15 minute segment there. Those two matches kind of slowed the crowd down a bit, but it came right back. They were live for the Angle Cena match, which is probably one of the best matches on the show. Those two clicked really well tonight, and the 6-man, and then the main event, and the pop Hogan got was just monstrous.
He always does get a big pop.
Yeah.
How was it full house or close to full?
For every section they had open, it was full, but
well, that's good.
They
were they carpet a lot?
Pardon?
I mean, did they put the big carpet out or whatever it is?
Yeah, they had one side of the entire Coliseum at the top blocked off, and then a small section of the upper deck blocked off.
Okay, so let's see, Richmond Coliseum. So that's probably
I'd say 8,000.
I bet it's less.
8,000.
I would bet it's a lot less than that because I don't think you're going to get more than about 9,000, and even without in the SmackDown set, I think that the sold out would probably be about 6,500.
Right.
So it's probably 5,000-6,000.
Right. I could see that too.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
I've been in the Coliseum many times. Yeah.
During Hogan's promo, talking about 15,000 Hulkamaniacs in the Coliseum.
Hey, it's less of an exaggeration than most of the ones he was doing last night.
At least 200,000.
That's very true.
You know what's funny? That reminds me one time, Ric Flair, who actually knows how big the Coliseum is, being that he probably wrestled there like 400 times. When the last time that they did a TV taping in Richmond before tonight, was when Flair was out there, and Flair just goes, "I'm here with 10,000 people," and Jerry Lawler just goes, "There's 15,000, Rick." And it was really like 8,000,
Right, you're both wrong.
No, but I mean, Rick was trying to exaggerate, and then Lawler was like,
exaggerate enough.
He didn't exaggerate enough because down here in the WWE, 10,000 doesn't sound good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But did you hear about the opening little video montage they played?
No.
For Hogan. Yeah, it's a great video. They show a lot of old Hogan footage. And it basically goes into the last 2 weeks with what's been going on with him and Brock on SmackDown.
That's awesome because the whole thing is the whole thing is they wanted to make sure that Brock really gets heat for destroying him.
Yeah.
Right.
Brock really destroyed him then, didn't he?
Oh, he did, and I was kind of disappointed not to see Hogan actually get pinned. Like Flair when Flair jobbed for Brock a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but it sounded almost like it was worse. Was it, or was it not?
Well, after the match, I think originally I thought they were going to cut off the cameras as Brock and Paulie were standing over top of Hogan in the ring, but then they went to the back. They came out, hit him with the chair, which busted him open, and he bladed. And then they went to the back again, and they came out, and Brock cut a promo saying, "I have Hogan's blood in my hands, and Rock, I will have your blood in my hands at SummerSlam." But he messed it up the first time. He had to come back out and
do it again.
Did a reshoot.
Not for SmackDown.
Well, that's why Brock should do. That's the beauty of the SmackDown show.
Yeah.
If it was Raw, we would all be laughing about it. If it's SmackDown, no one knows the better except for the people in the building.
I think there's also going to be some editing in the 6-man, a spot that Eddie and Ray messed up a little bit.
Yeah, well, they edit every missed spot that they can out of that show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I also noticed another thing was Rock wasn't there, even though it has him for the show.
That's not good. That's not good. That's not good because that's the beginning of the end. That's what WCW. I mean, I'm not saying that WWF, but that was one of those things that they needed to learn from WCW was, even if you don't want him on television for whatever reason, if you advertise a guy, have him come out in front of the people so the people don't feel ripped off, especially when it's Rock or Hulk Hogan or Triple H. I think that those guys have got to be, especially right now, they've got to be in the buildings they're advertised.
I wonder why that happened.
Why he wasn't there? Probably just going to work Raw, and he probably did.
Well, they advertised him, and then they didn't mention him at all until the very end of the show when Brock mentioned that, I know you're watching from Australia, Rock. And the crowd was just like,
Oh, I mean, I don't know if he went there early. Maybe he went there early. I don't think he did. No. But I think that's.
He'll be there Thursday, so that's probably.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Still.
Yeah.
And Hogan cut a pretty good promo too.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed during the promo he actually resembles Droopy the dog. It's just something I noticed. I was like, wow, he really does. But yeah, he got slaughtered in that main event.
Yeah, well, he's doing the right thing at the end of his career.
Had to happen.
Yeah. And, it's like, they'll let him slaughter Hogan. Well, that's because Paul Lee. But they wouldn't let him slaughter Bubba Ray Dudley and Rob Van Dam and people like
Hardys.
that. And the Hardys. Oh, my God. Don't even remind me of that.
Did you hear about the Velocity tapings?
No, anything major happened there?
Nothing major happened, but there was a good match between Chavo Guerrero and Tajiri. And there was actually some ring psychology in the match, which was nice for a change.
Yeah.
I saw Chavo pretty much working over the knee the entire time. And it ended with Chavo was up on top and he came off. I think he was going to go for a double axe handle. And Tajiri blew missed in his face and he called for the bell. Chavo won by DQ.
Ooh.
Psychology nice. You might see, DQ finish on Velocity.
I know, especially with those two.
Yeah.
Neither of those men could do a job on Velocity.
No, it's just I think they just want to do something different. You know what I mean? It's not like they're afraid of having people do jobs now.
Yeah.
So. Okay, John, I want to thank you very much for calling.
Okay, and can I say one last thing about SmackDown?
Sure can.
The night for the show.
Yep.
Following the 6-man tag match when Rey Mysterio Jr. pinned Kurt Angle, they showed Angle backstage, and probably the funniest line of the night during the show was Angle's just his face is just priceless, and he's sitting there for about 10 seconds, doesn't say a word, and he's like, I just got pinned by a 12-year-old. and the crowd just goes ballistic.
That's a good line.
It was so funny. Good show, very enjoyable. I had fun. I had a pretty good seat, and I should be on camera the entire time, so I'm happy about that.
Okay, that's great, John. Okay.
I wish I was that big when I was 12.
Fly around like that.
Just that big. Anyway, yeah, let's go to Ed in Fayetteville. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, after hearing of about the Angle Ray match on SummerSlam, they just sold me the pay-per-view.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I think Kurt Angle's going to have a good match every time anyway.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an interesting match because it's like there's a believability factor there that Kurt's going to really have to be working hard.
Well, Kurt's more than a mortal man, so I'm sure.
I recognize that.
Yeah, and speaking of Kurt, if Brock Lesnar wins the title at SummerSlam, everyone's expecting him to, and it bombs like almost everyone is expecting it to, do you think they'll throw the title on Angle as a damage control?
Yeah, I think that Kurt Angle's new role is going to be what Ric Flair's was. If it's not, it'll be either Kurt Angle or Hunter.
Yeah, well, Hunter's can't walk or anything. He's Triple H anymore, so I think that they'll need to put the belt on Angle to try to get some lust back on it, because Triple H and Undertaker and Hogan's title reigns all kind of failed at the box office and artistically this beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So I think Angle's the only one left.
Yeah, I mean, Angle won't draw at the box office now either. But the one thing with Angle is that you're, as a world champion on both shows, you're guaranteed just lots of awesome wrestling. I mean, even Rock. Look at how much better the wrestling, has gotten with Rock.
Yeah.
As compared to, Hunter and certainly Undertaker and Hogan.
Well, that's what you get when you have Rock who can actually walk.
Yeah.
My other question is, do you think that since Raw is taped and Raw is live and SmackDown is taped before it, redo the Bischoff forward thing?
Eric Bischoff is going to give the results away tomorrow night. Yes. I don't think he will, but it wouldn't shock me that they would do that because it doesn't really matter. And you know what? It's like, for all the times that I think Vince sat there and just like when that was going on, just like hated it so much and he can't forget it. But that meant no difference in the ratings. Anytime Eric Bischoff gave the results away, it never.
Wait a second, that one did have a difference.
Okay. Only the Mick Foley night. I'm talking about generally speaking. When he would say something, it meant nothing. The people who were, nobody switched one way or the other, except when he told them.
3 super kicks.
Except when he told him that Mick Foley was going to win the title on the other station. That one was ultimately one of the stupidest things he ever did. But what are you going to say?
I was going to say that although it might be kind of wouldn't help or hurt the ratings, but it might make the feud look a little more real, believable, make it seem a little more like a rather than the extremely corny fake feuding they've been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean the only problem is that to make that they've got to carry that through everywhere, and they don't carry it through anywhere. So that's the problem. Anyway, very much, Ed. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
More Wrestling Observer Live. Email the show now or anytime at WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. That's WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. Now back to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And if you're looking for information on either of these two publications, you can always go to www.WrestlingObserver.com. There's subscription information. In fact, on the website, in the feature section, there's previews of this week's issue of publications. So you can see that. And there's always examples of Brian's work, past work, up on the site every couple days, sometimes every day. And we've got news updates there as well, reviews of TV shows, all that kind of good stuff. We've got a full bank of calls from start to finish tonight. This is really cool.
Hey, speaking of great matches,
yes.
Benoit and Van Dam on Monday.
Do you think I didn't think it was that great. I thought it was good.
God, I thought that match was awesome.
That one didn't blow me away. Now, Mysterio and Tajiri I thought was awesome on Thursday.
Wow, I thought the Benoit match was better.
Really? I was watching, the Mysterio match, it just blew me away because it was like, I always thought that one of the problems with WWE's cruiserweights as compared to when they were in WCW is that, they got things clipped, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't do the same high-risk stuff because they're kind of told everyone's got to work that same style. And, I understand it, but at the same time, I like variation, and I think that, and Mysterio and Tajiri, I thought that they were within the WWE style, but they did enough that nobody else does to where people would go, wow, I want to see more cruiserweight matches.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I thought the Benoit match was a good match. I didn't think it was great, but boy, I thought that main event on SmackDown and the main event on SmackDown was great.
Yeah,
that was great. Benoit's like, my God, Eddie, Edge, all
of them. Rock. Don't forget Rock.
I never forget Rock. Except
on the road, as long as that guy's been on the road doing a movie, and he comes back, doesn't even miss a beat. Just like Benoit.
I tell you what, that's the other thing. That guy was out for a year with neck surgery, and it took him, about 2.5 weeks to do these matches?
Maybe.
Oh, my
Maybe
God.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Well, Benoit should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
With Sean, and someday, maybe next week we'll talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame. But we're going to head to some calls. We're going to go to Long Island, and Chris, what's up? Chris?
Yeah, this is Al.
This is Al. I'm sorry, Al. What's going on in Atlantic City?
Hi. This match has stuck in my mind for 15 years.
Oh, my God.
I was at the Spectrum during the 80s. I forget what year.
Oh, this is going to be tough.
It was an opening match between David Sammartino and a jobber.
And David lost.
The jobber beat him in toots with a bear hug. The crowd was in shock. Yeah. And I've never seen anything like it. What was the story behind that?
They were very mad at David Sammartino that night. I actually know that story.
Uh-huh.
They were trying to teach him a lesson. That's what it was. It wasn't, they've done that before. I can recall once, this is a sick story. Not sick, but very weird. I don't remember if it was Jose Estrada, but it may have been Jose Estrada, but he was wrestling Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer in I believe it was either San Francisco or Oakland. This would have been when Owen Hart had his first Blue Blazer run, and he beat Owen Hart, and it was really weird. And you know the reason that they did it?
What?
Because Dave Meltzer was in the stands that night, and they hated me, and they thought that would ruin my day. I cared, but that's actually true.
Oh, okay. But I remember there was a problem between McMahon and Sammartino. I thought that might have something to do with Bruno.
Actually, the Bruno stuff came later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Bruno. McMahon and Bruno never got along, but the real hatred between Vince McMahon and Bruno Sammartino came after David had left the WWF, and then Bruno quit a week after David was fired, and Bruno just hated Vince. It's just one of those things. He knows him well, and he changed wrestling. Bruno had an idea of what wrestling should be, and he's ashamed of what it became, and there's just a lot of reasons. there's two sides to every story. I mean, there's a Vince side and there's a Bruno side, and maybe someday they'll make up, but I'm not counting on it.
Well, I thought if there's one person that would remember that match, it would be you. So.
Yeah, I've got. Well, you're right about that.
All right, thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's go to Chris in Long Island. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I'm going to SummerSlam, obviously, in a few weeks. I was just wondering what matches currently are there to do. I know we got Rock, and obviously it looks like Angle and Mysterio. What else is going to...
I think those are the only... I think they may be the only two matches I even know.
Are they going to be doing Jericho and Flair, I guess, now?
They may do that on Raw tomorrow night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That may be on Raw. If it's not on Raw, then I would think they would be on the pay-per-view. They would issue a challenge for it, but I'm not sure.
And then the original plan was Hogan and McMahon to go at SummerSlam.
Right. That seems out the window. They may be doing a Hogan injury angle, but I mean, obviously they've done nothing with Hogan and McMahon at all. So I had been told, I don't know, it was 2-3 weeks ago that they had dropped all that plan.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of strange. It's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and they only have 2 matches for now?
That's modern wrestling.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay. You're very welcome, Chris. We're going to go to Scott in Stamford, Connecticut, who also wants to talk about SummerSlam.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Not too much. What's going on?
I was wondering, you guys think they should have Brock hit the shooting star at SummerSlam? Clean finish, but then you got Rock, and you want a big finish because it's biggest second biggest pay-per-view. So I'm thinking, why not? He kicks out of the F5, but then he hits him with that.
I would go in the other direction. I say that Brock does the shooting star, and Rock kicks out, and then he beats him with the F5 because he's not going to do the shooting star again. But everyone will remember him doing the shooting star, and the fact that Rock kicks out kind of lets Rock save a little bit of face.
All right, but you agree with me that that's when he should pull it out?
Absolutely.
I almost like the shooting star last better.
Do you?
But, he can use the F5 in every match, but it'd be an example of, here's a guy that's so good that if someone does kick out of his F5, he has something even more devastating.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then it's the psychology of it is that, he can beat most guys with the F5, which means, why even go for the shooting star most of the time, until, Angle comes or whoever. But you guys talking about they're doing Angle Mysterio?
Yeah.
I missed the first basically 3/4 of the show, and I guess is this from the tapings today?
Yeah, the tapings tonight. They had Mysterio pin Angle in a 6-man tag.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think Mysterio's really been blowing me away. I can't believe they gave him and Tajiri that much time.
Yeah, I was really happy with that. But it's Heyman. Heyman's got a different view, and they're obviously Heyman's getting so much praise that they're not screwing with his ideas. But eventually, if these ratings don't go up, they'll start going, hey, we can only do 3-minute matches because the ratings aren't holding up. And it's an unfortunate thing, but, ultimately that's going to be what he's judged on in the long run, not based on the praise, but I hope the ratings turn around.
Now, do you think that, this SummerSlam, I'm not even going. I could go on actually free, but, I'm not going to go because I think I want to see it more importantly on TV because I want to see how Brock comes off as a main eventer. But, I think this, pay-per-view right now, what is it, 2.5 weeks away or whatever, and they have nothing as far as, the thing about WrestleMania is that it's kind of it's not only the main event, but it's got bam, 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 maybe 6 big matches or at least ones that you want to see, you know what I mean? And it seems like what they're going to do now is just, throw a couple guys together, you know what I mean?
Oh, don't forget Devon and Batista.
Of course.
Yeah.
That'll be on there.
I have a question for you guys. As far as all the guys coming in like Johnny the Bull, now the Island Boys, who I can't believe they put on TV already. And all these guys, who do you think should get the first shot at showing everybody what these guys are made of? You know what I mean?
Certainly not Johnny the Bull. I hope they do something with Shelton Benjamin because he's the best athlete of them. But the Island Boy,
is he even on TV yet? I think he did Velocity.
I think he did one of the syndicated shows.
He's on Heat tonight.
Yeah.
I think that the problem is, if they push one of these guys and he doesn't get over, it's kind of gonna send a shockwave, sort of like everybody's gonna be judged, the same way that guy was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So say they push, say they push Randy Orton or something like that, which I don't think they're gonna do, or Johnny the Bull, and he screws up, or the fans don't take to him, he's still seen as a rookie and stuff like that. Then they'll be hesitant to push a guy like Leviathan or something like that, who I think should be one of the guys.
Well, I think one thing
they're going to push guys now, though. Because Heyman is, if you ever look at ECW, Heyman is always into pushing guys that nobody would have ever thought they could push.
Yeah.
And so that's his whole thing is getting new guys over. So as long as he's got the creative stuff on Thursdays, that show will push guys, and it'll push guys right because he knows how to do it. If he gets taken off, they'll probably start back to these parody pushes where a guy wins on Monday.
Oh, God.
Or, a guy wins one week, loses the next week, and nobody ever gets anywhere.
Like the Jeff Hardy pushes.
Like the Jeff Hardy, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think Mysterio's a great guy to use.
Yeah. Well,
I think he's new, but I think everybody already they want to get by. It's like the Van Damme thing.
Well, the other thing with him is they introduced him the right way in that they made people want to see him for weeks before he came out, rather than if they didn't do that good introduction job, I don't think it would be half as big as it is.
I can't stand the rap music. Can you guys?
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, another quick question. Do you guys think they're going in the wrong direction by, give this heated Triple H Shawn Michaels feud and, we don't even know when the hell's going to start, actually in ring?
If they don't do a match, I wish that they hadn't done any of this. If they do a match, then that's fine. Scott, we got to get running because we got a bunch of calls we got to get to before the end of the show, okay?
All right, you guys take care.
Okay, very welcome. We're going to go to Carlo in West Haven, Connecticut. Carlo, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Doing really good.
I read the article about, in the Observer about the racism and everything like that.
That was an interesting article.
Yeah, it was. And I was just wondering, like, really what you thought about as far as Booker T, because I think, like, as soon as he's been in WWE, they really just, like, made him out to be, like, a total idiot. I mean,
that was because of that TV show he was on. They kind of thought for a few weeks that would make for a funny gimmick. And then just like that whole thing, it's...
What show?
God, what was this? You remember the show that he was on, Weakest Link?
Like, yeah, I think
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, when you didn't know what day... Whatever. God, that was so funny. Booker T on Weakest Link. Anyway, go ahead, Carlo.
Yeah, I don't know if it's racism, but I think they've made him out to be like a total moron, like he's hanging around the gay guy and like looks at his hand in amazement when he does the spin-a-rooney.
They think that gets him over as like being distinct and everything. I mean, I don't believe that they make racist judgments. I do believe that there are people in wrestling, because I hear it from their own mouths, okay? And I'm not saying anyone in WWE, but I'm saying people who've been in WWE in the past and people who will probably be there in the future who will say certain things. And Brian, you've heard it too, where this is, because the audience is racist, this is what we have to do. So I think that there probably is something to that. We're dealing with a racist white audience, so this is how we have to portray the blacks.
So you think they could give him a main event push if
they could give anyone a main event push that they get behind 100%. He's certainly talented enough and can talk good enough.
Doesn't necessarily mean it'll be successful.
No, but they can
One
try.
of the things with Booker T is like the thing with Kurt Angle, where they had him doing all this stuff that they thought was so funny, and it's like, oh, it's funny, let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and now that's what they're doing with Booker T. That's the same mentality with Booker T. And it was real hard to break that thing for Kurt Angle because Kurt wanted it too.
And they really haven't even broken it yet.
He isn't doing that character much anymore, though. A little bit.
He's still kind of a dork.
A little bit. Yeah, I know. But not as much. And also, he's a lot more feared. I mean, he makes people tap rather than, run away and be the pussy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the other question was, Hogan, Flair, Nash. How much longer do you think these guys are going to be around?
As long as
Flair forever.
I don't know. As long as they can, if they wanted to retire one week, then they brought him back the next. There's no way. I don't know what's going to happen a week from now. It's not like the old days where you kind of knew where they were going a year from now. So, what can I say? I mean, until people don't want to see him anymore, they're going to round off. Okay, Carlo, we got to head to a break right now. We're going back for one last segment. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
There must be some kind.
We're back with Wrestling Observer Live. Give us a call anywhere in the U.S. toll-free at 1-866-OBSERVER. That's 1-866-627-3783. Once again, here's Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the final segment of the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. I want to take one last call. It's Justin, who's just got back, I believe, from the house show in Pittsburgh. Justin, how was the show?
Hey, it was okay, but Triple H needs to give another pep talk to those guys or something because the place is empty.
But that's not because they're not working hard.
Talk to the fans.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I know. The house shows. The house show business is bad. What can you say?
Now, is Pittsburgh notoriously bad, or is it like that?
Attendance-wise, Pittsburgh is just fine. Crowd reaction-wise, Pittsburgh is known as one of the worst crowds.
Well, we were like that tonight too.
Yeah, wrestlers hate going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, Nassau Coliseum are the two places that they hate going because they're the hardest crowds.
I tried, but nobody else was really into it. But they don't have any of those audience participation spots anymore, so it's not like they even have the automatic ones to get into.
I don't know why they got rid of it. you know, I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, that they have lost that they do need to bring back. I mean, but, they, you know, I don't know what to say.
My favorite part was the beginning of the show. Steven Richards comes out, and they brought out this UPN Pittsburgh guy to talk at the beginning of the show, and Steven is running him down. He's stupid because this is a Raw show, and he's from SmackDown. And then he should go to the merchandise stand because they're selling all sorts of SmackDown merchandise.
Well, there you go. Brian, that's it right there. If you're selling SmackDown merchandise at Raw shows and Raw merchandise at SmackDown shows, which they do, then again, why would anyone take any of this stuff seriously?
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole thing is when they do a combined show and nobody cares and doesn't sell one extra ticket.
Yeah, they're doing a combined show this weekend. Remember they did the combined show in Ontario, and they drew a horrible house.
Yep.
And there's your answer. When they do the feud and split them, no one's going to care anyway.
Yep.
Anyway, we are like... Anything else, Justin, real quick?
Just Sean O'Hare. He could have been like WCW champion if Bischoff fought the guy.
I know. We were talking about it, and now it's like he's another guy who can't work.
Busted D'Lo. All right, thanks a lot, Dave.
How was Flair and everybody tonight?
People for him, but it was not exactly what I was hoping for him.
Okay. Well, it was Lance Storm's, you know, highlight of his career, or one of them, finally getting to work with Ric Flair.
Sold the figure 4 well.
Well, he's been waiting for 10 years to do it. Anyway, we're totally out of time. We'll see you all next week. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Patrick Morrow's up with the video game show right after this.